Alright, the professor is fiddling with different ways to, use these shelter halves. They're cheap and easy to pick up, and they don't weigh really that much. They don't weigh near what you would expect them to weigh. And we took, and these things make a tent, a perfect pup tent, like the classic pup tent you used to see when you were a kid, depending on how old you are. And what we've done, well, what Professor did, is he put these stakes up front, these poles, and what you would do is you'd make the poles just a hair shorter and stake those guys down, and you got your shelter back in there, your bush bed. And then, depending on how big your bed you want to be, mine's just like big enough for one person, but if you wanted a two-person, you could have your bush hippie chick and make a fire right out front. You got a good little shelter there. And then your water, he's got it on a steep enough angle for where all the water is just going to run right off the back. And then but it's a pretty slick little shelter, and it's got it. I've been in it, and it's pretty nifty. I'm gonna crawl in here and show you if I don't trip over some guy lines. Just get on my bush bed, and you got flap down here, and if you wanted, you could almost make a flap to fit in here. And it's pretty much a whaling, right?
Pretty much, more or less.
I mean, if you cut along this seam and made a piece to fit in here, you got a whaling. And then, so you got a nice wind block. You got a nice bush bed. This thing is actually, before I go to bed, I'm gonna use a piece of canvas to put on top of it just to keep me from being itchy. But it's nice and soft, and it works good. And then we'll have a fire in between us. That's a Professor's rig right there. And kind of give you an idea what these shelter halves we're going to do with them. As soon as we get done playing with the shelter half, I'm going to put it on my bed and get my pack up here so I can easy access, and it's going to be my pillows tonight as well. That's my sleep system. And so that's what we're doing. And then pretty soon we're going to build a small fire right in the middle, a long fire, and go from there. But I just thought I'd show this configuration. It's pretty neat. As long as you button the top one over the bottom one, you won't have to worry about any rain coming in. And then you could hang a lantern off up there or something. But and then have your small fire right close out front, and you're good to go. So, you got anything to say about it?
Looking good to me, Ryan. I think it's ready to go.
I might have to come out here and try this in use.
Yeah, I don't know that you want to do it where you're going to have too big of a fire in front.
No, I mean just a small fire, just big enough to cook off of and give you some light.
If your fire was out in here, out beyond the edge of it a little bit.
Right.
If you were like the only tent here, or if mine was sitting back a little farther.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think they're a little too close right now. But if
right.
I backed this one up, if I'd have thought about it, I could have set mine up farther back.
Well, I mean, And the thing is, you could almost make a huge, like two of these make a little pup tent. If you took another one and snapped the ridge in there, you got a great big tent.
Yeah, you can just keep snapping them together, hooking them together until you kind of make whatever you want.
And I think if these poles were just a hair shorter, you could almost stake these flaps down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could stake those down. You could tie it over here, or you could pull those out.
Right.
For shade, particularly if it's in hotter weather.
You want the breeze,
but you gotta get the breeze, and then you keep the shade, so you keep the sun off of you too.
Right.
So you kind of have a shaded area.
I think these are good for shade too. If you face them to the south.
Yeah, they'd be great. They'd be great. So it kind of works. There's a way to adapt them for just all kinds of stuff.
But
so these have been time tested. Okay, these
World War II.
People say they're obsolete, but they go clear back to the Civil War. They had they had these in the Civil War. They weren't as advanced. The World War I models just had the one triangular piece on each side. And so what they did then was they had the bell shape at the back. They didn't have that in the front. It was just open on there. By World War II, they added the second triangle on each one, so they'd kind of make the bell shape on both ends, give you a little bit more interior room in there.
But I mean, as far as the shelter goes, I'm really digging it. It's very bushcrafty type, and they're very affordable at your local, you know, surplus store.
Well, and if the military has quit using them, you know, it's kind of like they may not be a lot more of these when the surplus is gone. There may not
I've already
be a
picked
lot
up quite a few of them. I plan on picking up a few more.
It's kind of like the USGI mess kit. What reason do we have for that anymore? We have MREs now. You know, it's eat out of the bag. So why do you really need the mess kit? So I bought up on some of those while you could still get them. Mine are 1982 models, but there may not be. You know, they haven't used those or issued those for quite a while. So the surplus market on that will dry up. I suppose that eventually, you know, the reproductions have already started on those. Maybe that'll happen on shelter halves too. But it's kind of good to have an authentic, you know, real bit of gear. Another thing with a fire, you don't have to worry so much about these. You know, a nylon tarp, you get those sparks on there, and it's going to burn little pinholes through that right away. Whereas with these, you know, natural fibers are going to perhaps, if it sits on there too long, will eventually burn a hole in it or scorch it. But they're a lot more fire retardant than your poly tarps or something like that.
Durable too.
Yeah, they're durable. They take a lot of abuse. So we've used ours today to make our duff hauling device.
Yeah, we hauled all our pine duff in with them.
Piled them all in. I used it for a bag, used it for that. Of course, if you take this one off and use that to cover up your bed, so our insulation bed doesn't become a gigantic tinder bundle.
Another thing we're going to have to do is one of these days get out here and do all the different configurations, because, I mean, you can see right here, he's using a stick as his pole. Whereas I have the poles that were issued. They just 3 little sections that one pops onto the other one, and you got your poles. And then the little piece sticks out a grommet at the top, and then you tie it out, and you're good to go. But you can see he's got, I don't know if you can see it on here or not, but on his guy right there, he's got a little hook hanging off it. He can hang his hat or
that's just perfect.
Whatever he wants.
To hang my hat on tonight when I go to bed, that's my hat hanger.
Yeah.
And also my light clips on the bill of my cap, so it'll be right there. I can reach up and get the light turned on if I need to.
Yep. I gotta say, I think that there are so many applications for this as far as configurations and how you can rig them and you know, I think they're a good piece of kit. I'm glad I bought them.
Well, they're tested and true, Ryan, for 150 years.
Right.
150 years of history behind this piece of gear. Okay. How many other pieces of gear do you know that have 150 years of experience with these? Early ones had buttons. Even in World War II, they had rows of buttons and buttonholes. But the snaps are clever because there's two-sided snaps. Each side is both a
yep, you can see they're here
one
too.
side as well as the other side. They're double snapped, so they go together.
Right.
Better. The World War II ones you just
and all
had
down along the sides too.
They're double snaps, whereas the World War II type you just buttoned over and you just used one set of buttons. You couldn't button both sets.
Right.
Because they were all shelter halves were made just alike. So to mate the two up, you couldn't use the double ones. But in the case of these snaps, see, they're two-sided. On one side, you have one part of the snap.
You have the female on this side, and then you have the male on that side.
Yeah, and it's really clever, because then both sets of snaps can snap together.
I think we ought to take and drop this down and make the little pup tent out of it and just show it.
Show that configuration, too.
Just to show how versatile it really is, because you could have just a half for a one-man, or you could do 2 separate halves like we're doing tonight, or, you know, if it's you're going out with your girlfriend or whatever, you could just drop these poles, put stakes in the ground, and then you got a full little pup tent.
You know, we ought to go ahead and set it up that way. The idea there, my dad said he spent a year or 2 in Alaska in World War II, and they set those up out in the snow. 2 guys slept in each one. And he said they didn't have any stove, no heat source. It was just body heat. The guys in there breathing, their breath kept it warm. And so it was quite a bit warmer than the outside temperature.
Right.
Which may have been 50 below zero up there, so I don't think we're going to be quite that cold tonight.
No, I think we're going to get down, what, the low 20s?
20s. But with a fire here in front, I think we're going to gonna be good. Yeah, it'd be fun to let this down now. Let this top down
Yeah.
and then try it in your regular pup tent configuration.
Yeah, I think showing all the different configurations would be neat. I would like to see it too because I'm new to these. But I think that it's such a good piece of kit. I mean, I'm the type of person, I like the canvas and the wood and this, you know, the antler and all that kind of stuff, and this is not far from it. It's just canvas, plain green canvas.
Old traditional stuff is just kind of what's fun, you know.
And it's not something, it's not something when you look at it, it screams military, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a plain green canvas.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. That OD just is just kind of tasteful. Just kind of fits into the woods environment. It's just good stuff. A lot of people say, well, they're obsolete, they've been replaced, and so on. But it's a kind of a tradition thing. To me, it's what camping ought to be. It's what camping's been to me since I was 10 years old.
Right.
I got my first shelter half tent, and I don't know, it's just fun to go out and do it once in a while.
It is.
Of course, we got our modern tents, we got our modern, modern tarps, which is fun to do too, if you're going to have to pack a long ways. But
and we were talking earlier about how these things might need to be waterproof, but then, you know, you can see on the camera this light that's coming through here. But we were talking, and it's nowhere near as bad as it looks on camera, but you know, once water hits this, the fibers are going to swell up, and then it's going to, as long as you're not touching it and rubbing against it, you shouldn't be, you should be all right as far as that goes. But
yeah, you just don't want to touch the inside of it too much. The other thing you want to do is if your tent lines are tight, you know, if they're tight to start with and the tent gets wet, you want to get out there and loosen those up a little bit, because it'll when that swells up, that'll tighten your ropes, and as your ropes tighten up, it'll actually pull your tent so tight that it could rip it. So you want to loosen the lines a little bit in the case of rain on it. But right now, snugging it up, you know, for dry is real good, keeps everything looking good. But if these get wet, you definitely do want to loosen the lines a little bit.
right. Well, I think we should take these poles out, drop it down, stake it out, and show everybody what it looks like.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. All right. I am inside the two shelter halves pulled up as a pup tent. You can see we got it staked down here. We didn't do this as like good as if we were going to sleep in it, because it's just to show you guys. But we staked there, and we normally stake one in the middle to pull this really nice and snug. And you got one out there on the corner. Now this flap, there's a flap up here that you would pull down, if I can get it, that you would pull down and snap together with this one to create a closed end like you would here, which we missed to snap. But and you know, you've got room for two people in here. And what you would do is you would have one guy carry half the shelter and another guy here carry the other half. And then when you get to wherever you're going to set up, you put, set it up, and then you both got a place to sleep. But the only bad downside with this kind of shelter is you need some kind of ground pad, or if you're gonna if you're carrying a sleeping pad, you can just put your sleeping pad down and use it like that. But I think this is a pretty neat little shelter. We got them snapped together here in the middle, and I'm going to try this out on one of my next campouts in this configuration. But for tonight, I'm just going to use a 1/2. But I think this, what tent can you buy that you can split it in half and use only half at a time? Or have somebody else use the other half at another place? Or you can bring them together and make one with a tarp over top of the front like we showed you earlier. Or a pup tent like this. I mean, you can't do that anymore. They don't make these things much anymore. So I'm going to buy as many as I can, because I think they're great things, and I think once you wear one out, which I think it'll take a long time to wear one out, I think it's a very useful. All right, we're outside of the tent now, and you can see it, and it's pup tent configuration. Let me back up a little bit so I can get the whole thing in frame. And that's what it looks like. You've got these kind of belled out ends, which gives you a kind of a place to put your gear, or if you're really tall, kind of like me, You can got a place to lay your feet and everything. But you just go through. You got 3 stakes, a stake on either end, and 3 stakes on that side. And then you got 2 ropes to tie out the poles, and that's it. Or you can snap a ridge line in here and use it that way. In either configuration. I think you can do it with this configuration or just a single. So that is the pup tent configuration.